You're watching Tea and Poetry with Dave Steele, the blind poet.
Okay, good afternoon, guys. Good evening. Welcome to a very special episode of Tea and Poetry. Coming to you live from, where are we? Leesburg.
Yes.
We are in Leesburg. I'm looking kind of sun-kissed here. We've got a very special hour of Tea and Poetry with myself, and Amy Grissom is here with me. We're on the last leg of the Austin's Amazing Adventures and Austin's Amazing Ambassadors book tour. We're going to be starting something in just a few minutes. We're just waiting for people to join in and join us. So just give us a couple of minutes, sit back, relax, pour yourself a cup of tea. If you haven't got a cup of tea, have a beer. That's what I'm doing. We've just arrived at our hotel for the night before we move on to the next location. But we've got a very special location, a very special episode of Tea and Poetry. And I'm going to bring on my co-host for this evening when I find her. Just bear me 1 second.
You're talking about Barb?
I am.
She's not on yet. She's getting kicked back to the registration page for some reason.
Okay. So we are just waiting for Barb Calhoun, who's co-hosting with me. Barry Asman, my usual co-host, is mid-flight and hopefully will be joining us in just a little while. While we're waiting on Barb getting logged in, I just want to go through how things are going to work today, because it's slightly different to our usual episodes of Tea and Poetry in the format. Barb is going to be explaining how it's a little bit different as soon as she gets on. And I love how I need to pronounce Barb, right? Because it's still coming up as Bob, but that's my accent on the transcript. But there we go. So in a little while, we're going to be having a very special interview with a very special brother and sister who have come on to interview me in just a little while. We're going to start that off as soon as Barb, still coming up as Bob comes on to join us. And then after the interview, we're then going to be bringing all of you on your cameras, get you interactive those that want to join on. But just bear with us just a few minutes. I'm just watching everyone else join. Let me just see who's here. We've got lots of new faces, which is great to see, and lots of familiar faces as well. I've got to say a big hi to Derek Mills, to Doreen, to Ellie Dupree, to Jennifer, our regulars, all the new faces as well. We got lots of people, but bear with us just a few minutes. Travis is in the room. He's already got his hand up, which is great. But as I said, what's going to happen is we're just waiting for my good friend Barb to join us, who's going to be our co-host this evening or this afternoon. And we are going to bring it on and start Tea and Poetry. So
she's got to register. So
okay,
on in just a minute.
Just a moment, guys. We hope you're all well. It's been, while we're doing that, I want to update you on the trip. So obviously I'm here in Florida, been here since last Wednesday. Amy and Austin flew home on Sunday night. We had an incredible time, even though we had a little bit of bump in the road. We flew to New York on Wednesday from the UK last Wednesday. And I had a couple of events to do in New Jersey on Thursday. And then Thursday night, we were supposed to be flying from JFK Airport to Orlando. But unfortunately, our flights got cancelled. We ended up in a rebook queue at JFK Airport Thursday evening, and there was no flights anywhere. We thought at one point the whole trip had to be cancelled. But luckily enough, through the efforts of Barry Asman and Amy Grissom, we had flights booked the following day. And even though we missed a day of the conference for Foundation Fighting Blindness Visions 2022, we arrived to Orlando late Friday night. Amy and Austin flew from JFK to Tampa, and I flew out of all places from JFK to Minnesota. And I always say that, not Minnesota, Minneapolis. Minneapolis to and then JFK to Minneapolis, and then Minneapolis to Orlando. I have.
Okay.
Barb giving me orders before she's got on. I am on it with the subtitles. Captioning's on. Okay, we're going to bring Barb in just a second. Just bear with me 1 second. Let me just see if I can do that right now. Here she is here. I'm going to ask her to come on as a panelist. She should be getting that request right now. And here she is. Are you there, Barb?
I'm here just getting everything, you know, my photo, like it's just, there it goes. Right.
Apologies for the captioning and my that's causing the problem. So for this whole episode of Team review. Can you?
Unfortunately, Dave, you're breaking up on my end.
Yep, she is.
Oh, I'm froze. Okay. Mhm. You know, did Dave just leave and it's just me, you guys? Can somebody post in the chat if you see and hear me? Okay, well, we will, let me continue the show or continue chatting until Dave rejoins us, because I'm not really sure what happened.
Hello, are you there?
Dave, your connection, they all hear and see me, but your connection's kind of coming and going. So, and then, okay, captions is still on, right? Let me make sure that. Okay, all right. Well, let me share a little bit about myself while we wait. Okay, Dave, you're back. I think the connection of where you are is a little spotty. People can hear and see me, but you keep kind of coming in and out. This is why this is recorded and we can edit all of this. So this will not be the final cut. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just keep talking until Dave gets on. But I'm the program director for Austin's Amazing Ambassadors. And something that I do is I come alongside people that want to go into their local community and chat a little bit about what, you know, raising awareness for the blind, low vision, and deafblind community, and talking to people to share what the community can do to support them, but also talking about like, hey, we exist within your community. And then, you know, I'll definitely go into it a little bit more. I think Dave is on again. I think Amy is coming to the rescue.
Nope, I'm turning the camera to him. We just hooked up through my computer. So here you go.
Okay. Yay. All right, so let's try this again. Yay.
There we go. Can you hear me now loud and clear?
Yes, I believe you're loud and clear. But for a second there, you disappeared and I'm just sitting here and I realized that everybody can hear and see me. And I was like, oh, so, but we're all good. Take it away.
So, yeah, welcome to another hour of Team Poetry. We've got a very special hour, as I said. I'm sorry about the technical problems, but as Barb said there, we will get that all edited out. I could hear you. Yeah, you couldn't hear me. This is what happens when we do a live. We've got a transcript going, so I hope everyone can see the transcripts and be able to read okay. We've got a special hour. Normally, Tea and Poetry is about an hour of conversation on all things to do with blindness and low vision. I share new pieces of poetry. We have special guests, and we have two very, very special guests coming to join us today. Before we bring them in, and I'm going to have to do that on my phone, I think, wherever that is. There it is. Thank you so much. Can you explain to everyone, Barb, who is coming to join us and a little bit about the background of why today's happening?
Okay, so today we have two, I'll say teenagers, youths, that I know their mom through Facebook and through Facebook support groups. And we've kind of been chatting, and she had reached out to me and had asked if they could interview Dave to ask questions about inclusion and diversity in literature. And I said, you know what, it sounds like a great conversation. Can we make this tea and poetry? And of course, everyone was on board. So we have joining us eventually, we're going to have, I believe the name is Krish and her brother Aaron. So they'll, when they get hopped on, when they get on, they can kind of help us make sure we're saying names correct all across the board.
So
yeah, they're going to be
one thing, Barb. Are they on the same? Are they together on the same login? Do we know?
I believe so. Yeah.
I've just put a request in for them to change the role to panelists, so they should be able to join us via camera. I'll make sure we've got that. Let me know when they come on.
Okay. Just to add, while they're doing that, they are. It's through the Helen Keller Awareness Week is this topic, but I do believe that they are on. They're getting their camera and their microphones on.
Oh, here we go. There it was. Hey, how you doing, guys?
You guys are on mute. You'll have to unmute yourselves.
Hello. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you see both of us?
We can. I can. We can see you, and we can hear you loud and clear. I've got to say a big thank you to you and your family for asking to do this. I've been looking forward to this all day. Well, actually, for a good few days now, and I really appreciate all your support of Austin's Amazing Adventures and my poetry and everything you do. And I'm really looking forward to hearing some of the questions that you have for me.
Thank you for inviting us on to ask questions about you and what you do. It's my pleasure.
And we just want to thank you for giving your time to us and letting us take the time to interview you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So before we kick off with the interview, could you tell everybody that's listening about both of you and your connection to the low vision and blind, the deaf blind community? And can you also explain how you found me and your connection to my poetry and books?
Okay, so I'm a 16-year-old, soon to be 17, with Usher syndrome type 3B, and because of that, I'm progressively losing my vision, and it has impacted my hearing. Right now, I still have like a good chunk of my vision left, but eventually in the future, it will progressively get worse.
My name is Krish. I'm 12 years old, soon to be 13. And I have Usher syndrome type 3B. I have low vision. And I'm also deaf with bilateral cochlear implants. And my vision is kind of impacted. I have a hard time seeing in bright sunlight. And I also have a hard time seeing small fonts. So I can see as long as things are modified, and I have the dyslexia too.
So I found you because I was a panelist for Disability Book Week, which is basically an organization dedicated to promoting or showing books that are written by authors with disability and feature basically people who have disability. And I think my sister did a review on your book, Austin's Amazing Adventure.
Yes.
And that's how we found you.
Fantastic. And yeah, I remember seeing the video that your sister did and how it put a really big smile on my face, seeing how you loved the story and you loved the way the book was laid out, the image descriptions and the large text and the illustrations. And yeah, so I'm very excited to have you both here today.
Yeah, excited too.
So I believe you have some questions that you'd like to ask. And I know from the social media posts that I've seen in the build up to this today, you have a lot of people, a lot of friends and support who are joining us here today for the very first time for Tea and Poetry. So I'd like to say a big welcome to everyone here that is with us for the first time and joining us. And it's great to have you become part of our tribe, as we call it, our family on Tea and Poetry. And when we are done with the interview, we're going to open it up and get everyone else on to maybe ask you some questions as well. So I'm really looking forward to this. So let's get started, and please ask me your first question.
My first question is, how old were you when you started to lose your vision?
Okay, so that's kind of a two-part question. So I actually was officially diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa 8 years ago. I probably had the early onset of RP from my early 20s. I had a very slow progression with night blindness from my early 20s, but I didn't make that connection that was RP. I just kind of got on with things. It was very slight and slow, gradual night blindness. I actually was officially diagnosed 8 years ago. So I first heard about RP when I was 7 years old. My sister was the first one in our family to be diagnosed with it. And I remember going to my local eye hospital to have tests done. But after that, I was always told that we had this eye disease in our family called retinitis pigmentosa, but it wouldn't affect me until I was much, much older. So I kind of forgot about it. But it was 8 years ago when I got my eyes checked, and there'd been a lot of decline in my eyes that really started this experience and journey into the blind community, and what actually led me to become known as blind poet today. I remember feeling really scared at the beginning, knowing that I was going to lose my sight, or I was, going to lose a lot more. I didn't know where my place was in the world anymore. But actually now I always say that I'm thankful for my blindness. I am happy, much happier than I was before I started to lose my sight, because I use that small tunnel of vision that I have to appreciate what really matters in the world and what's beautiful. And actually, before we read before you ask me the next question, I'd like to read you a piece of poetry, because normally on Tea and Poetry, we open with a poem, and I want to share with you a poem now that really talks about how I'm happy. I'm much happier now than I was before. It's called The Stranger, and it goes like this. Today, a stranger asked me, what has blindness done to me? Has it limited the plans I've made or the things I hoped would be? Has it forced me now to settle on a life that's second best? Has it made me give up lots of things since I failed the blindness test? Do I still have aspirations, special places, dream to go? Is there any point in beauty if the eyes don't work to show? But my answer came so quickly, not a thought considered twice. I am happy for this blindness, for the way it's changed my life. It has taught me what's important and shown me who my real friends are. And I wouldn't change a thing I've learned just to get back in my car. I have met amazing people since this RP took my sight. We share in common struggles, joined together through this plight. Though my retinas are dying, my mind's vision has increased. For each day I'm making memories, for long after sight has ceased. So never offer pity for the broken sense I've lost. For I feel I have gained more than the price that blindness cost. There we go.
That's a beautiful poem. I
Thank
love
you
it.
so much. Thank you. What's your next question?
My next question is, how did that affect your life at that time?
So at that time, at the beginning, it was a really kind of tough 8 or 9 months of struggling to come to terms with my low vision and blindness. It wasn't just the physical aspects of losing my sight that were the hard parts. It was the misconceptions around blindness and low vision that I face, and a lot of people face when they're out in public. That question of "you don't look blind" that a lot of people ask. Those are the things that make people feel isolated and misunderstood. So that was one of the things I was really struggling with. Also, at the time, I was working in a job selling cars, doing car sales, and I relied on driving, getting myself around independently. And the moment I was unable to drive anymore, I really found it difficult. We as a family lost our house. We couldn't afford the rent in the place that we were staying because I lost my job. And I was feeling anxious and struggling with depression, not just because of my low vision and blindness, but because of the financial pressure it was putting on my family. So that was really difficult at the beginning, but that was all these things, these challenges were the things that inspired me to start sharing my journey through poetry and talking about what I was going through and my family was going through with the rest of the community, and helping people. So yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
How did you deal with your depression? Because I think I read somewhere that like 60 or 70% of people who have disabilities has dealt with depression or some mental illness at some point in their life.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So you're exactly right. There's a very high number of people who live with disabilities and different challenges, deal with mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. Also, there's a very high unemployment rate within the low vision and blind community, almost 75%. And I really, I did struggle for a while. I wouldn't have got through it if it wasn't for my wife and my children and the support that I had around me. The biggest thing that really helped me was to speak to other people like yourselves, to join support groups on Facebook and social media and talk to other people who were going through the same thing. And knowing that I wasn't alone, and knowing that there was others that had been through the same thing before but were thriving in life and doing incredible things, inspired me to do the same. So that was actually the reason I started to write the poetry. I got invited to a support group for people with RP and Usher syndrome. And because I'd previously in my life worked as a singer, when I was going to this support group, the organizers said to me, "Oh, we heard you were a singer. Would you come and sing some songs for the support group?" And when I was asked to do that, immediately I said yes, because I was really anxious about going to a support group for the first time, because being around other people who were blind and visually impaired, people using mobility canes and people with guide dogs, that was like a kind of scary glimpse into my future. So I was very anxious. But when they asked me to come and sing some songs, I felt comfortable about going there, because singing and being on stage and talking is kind of my comfort zone. So that was the thing. What was the night before going to this support group, I was in bed choosing which songs to sing for the group. And I thought it would be a great idea to change the words to "Stand By Me" by Benny King and talk about my experiences with low vision and blindness. And when I did that, I got a reaction from the people who were there saying that the words I'd written was describing how they'd always felt about their low vision and blindness. And from that moment, I felt like I got my purpose back. It was something I could do to support people and help people. And that's what I do with all my poetry. People use it as a way for them to feel less alone, to talk about the misconceptions with low vision and blindness, but they also use it as a way for them to explain to their loved ones how they feel when they can't find the words themselves. So that was really, really special to me, and that gave me something I could do in the world to make a difference.
And do you keep mentioning that there have been many misconceptions or stereotypes that have been placed on the disability community? Can you explain like which ones are specifically harmful and why it's harmful to the community in large, and what we can do to combat it?
Absolutely. So the misconceptions in most cases are nobody's fault. It's just a lack of awareness, a lack of education. A lot of people, we're here in 2022 now, and a lot of people still to this day think that if you are blind or you use a cane or you have a guide dog means that you see nothing at all. And actually 94%, around 94% of people who are affected by sight loss have some kind of useful vision. Only around 6% have no light perception, no sight whatsoever. But think that being blind means seeing nothing. And actually, we need to change the way the word blindness is defined, because blindness is a spectrum and there are many different shades. I talk about this with children, and as soon as you explain it once, they get it straight away. So we just need to share more and educate more, because unfortunately the lack of education makes people feel very isolated. There's a lot of people out there with not just with low vision and blindness, but with disability, who, because of the misconceptions and lack of education out there on different disabilities, won't go out for fear of judgment and fear of the situations that they can get themselves into. So they become very isolated, and that's not good for anyone. The world is a place we should be out enjoying ourselves, living our lives to the full. So I'm inspired to change that through my poetry that I work hard on every single day.
Mhm.
Okay.
And that's really relatable, because listening to that, I realized that's actually how I feel sometimes, because in the past, in the past, there have been a few people that assume that I'm blind and all that, and that really upset me. And then I was like, okay, so I need to make a change. I have to help others understand that blindness is a spectrum. It's like blindness is the umbrella, and then there are different causes as a raindrop. So
Absolutely.
I agree with
and a lot of people with disabilities experience loneliness, because a lot of people who are fully sighted or have no experience of disabilities sometimes feel like they don't want to say the wrong thing to someone. So instead of asking the question in a nice way, they don't speak, which causes people to experience loneliness.
Yeah.
And like, speaking of education, there have been statistics that show that the majority of people with disabilities are not college ready. I think in my school district, it's like maybe 30% are college ready, like
13.5% are college ready.
Yeah, but why do you think that is? Like,
the world is a better place than it used to be with regards to inclusion. There is a lot more inclusivity now, and a lot of organizations doing some incredible work, but we need more of that. We need more awareness, we need more programs, we need more education. And often people are let down by the services, and so we need to get better. You know, we have this really high unemployment rate within low vision and blind community and in the disability community. So, you know, colleges, big companies, organizations actually should spend more time recruiting people from these communities to work with them and help change those social barriers that many people today still face.
Will you please describe your vision and how do you see
Sure.
the world?
So at the moment, where I am in my progression is my left eye now has lost all its useful vision. I have light perception in my left eye, and I can still see kind of movements, but I can't see any detail. And in my right eye, I have lost all my peripheral vision. So it's just like, I'm holding my hand up now over my right eye. It's just like a small tunnel of vision. The central vision I have is now starting to decline, but I can still read text if it's large enough. I can still see faces. If you were sat next to me, I'd only be able to see part of your face. But I have my long cane that helps me get around when I'm traveling. And I also have my guide dog at home, Christopher, who helps me immensely. He's fantastic.
And as you said, the entire thing about the disability community is about changing perspective, how they see us, how we are educating them. How would you define changing perspective in your opinion?
Well, for me, you know, speaking personally, I try to change the perspective through the work that I do and through my poetry. To me, music and poetry is the same thing. It's like song lyrics. And the good thing about music and poetry is it makes people pay attention more and feel it more. When I speak at events, you'll have people there who are affected by disability and low vision, who obviously relate to the things that I'm talking about because they've experienced it. But for the people who are in the audience and the people who listen to my poetry and read my poetry who aren't affected by a disability or low vision or blindness, they can close their eyes, and because of the power of poetry and music, they can really imagine it in a way that it's very difficult to do from just talking. When you have a rhyming words or lyrics, you know, we have songs that when we listen to songs and music, everyone has certain songs that are special to them, that have maybe been there for them at a dark time in their lives. Maybe they have a particular song that reminds them of someone they've lost or a breakup or things like that. We turn to music at these times in our life, and poetry can do that and does do that through my work. It allows people to really experience it and put themselves in our shoes, and that is a great way of being able to change people's perspectives.
Okay. And for literature, a recent data shows that 25% of people have some kind of disability, yet I think only like less than 1% of books have been either written by an author who has disabilities or features a main character who has disabilities. Why would you say that is, and is there any way that we can work towards changing it?
Well, it's absolutely the reason for that I really can't answer, but that was the thing that inspired me to write Austen's Amazing Adventures. There's a British author by the name of Julia Donaldson who writes rhyming poetry books that I've always read to my son Austen since he was born. Books called The Gruffalo, Stickman, Room on a Broom, lots of stories that Julia Donaldson has written. And she did a newspaper article in the UK 2 years ago where she spoke about there needs to be more children with disabilities featured in children's stories. And as soon as I read that article, that was the thing that inspired me to write Austin's Amazing Adventures. And in fact, I wrote the first 6 books in one night. As soon as I read that article, the books just fell out of me in the stories. And actually, I don't know if you know this, with Austin's Amazing Adventures, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, the idea with this series of books, which there's going to be many, many books, that in the future with them, the world that they're set in is going to be like any mainstream school. So you'll have characters within the stories that are told in poetry with things like autism and ADHD and Asperger's, wheelchair use, all these different challenges, anxiety. If you walk into any mainstream school, you're going to find a lot of children with lots of different challenges. And the great thing about these stories is we can normalize these challenges and disabilities through the poetry and help these children to be better understood and give them those characters that they can really relate to and identify with.
How did why did you start writing poetry?
Why? Well, that's back to what I was saying earlier when I got invited to that support group and I got that reaction from writing the words to Stand By Me RP. I felt like this was something that I could really do in the world to make a difference. And, you know, with poems and music being the same thing to me, I just started to write poetry every single day, sometimes 2 or 3 poems a day, and sharing them on the support groups on Facebook and online, social media. And every time that I shared one of these poems, I would get those messages from people saying things like, I really needed to hear this today, and how they were using my words as a way for them to show their families and their friends and loved ones how they were feeling. So they would point to a particular poem and say, this is how I feel today, or this is how I feel about one thing. And, you know, I write poems about living with low vision and blindness. I write poems about my guide dog, my children, using mobility canes, everything that we all experience in life. But not only people with low vision and blindness to relate to them. When I talk about things like anxiety or depression, or just feeling anxious about going to new places and all these things that we experience, people from outside of the community can relate to them as well. And I think that is really important, that especially after the last 2 years with the pandemic and COVID, where it almost feels like the whole world has experienced what it's like to live with a disability, because people around the world through the pandemic have been experiencing isolation and anxiety and having to think twice before stepping outside your door, just like people with disabilities have to live with on a day-to-day basis. So actually, in my poetry, there's things that everyone can relate to.
And speaking of COVID, how would you say that COVID has affected you, especially when it comes to your low vision?
So it affected me in lots of different ways. So I don't know if you know this, but at the beginning of COVID, when everything kind of closed and shut down, I was actually at home in the UK. I had my suitcase packed, my bags were packed, and I was getting ready to fly to America, to a place just outside of Washington, D.C., where I was due to be the host compare for the Helen Keller Achievement Awards. I was going to be hosting it for AFB, and this is a really great honor to be able to go and host these awards, something that I was really looking forward to. And then everything shut down and got cancelled. And I found myself very isolated, not just because of the way we were in lockdown, but also on those occasions where I went out. Because of my low vision, I struggled to socially distance in shops and stores using my cane, and often I would bump into people and people would get annoyed with me. Also, I found using a mask quite difficult as well, because often it would ride up and it would block my limited vision. So there was a period during the pandemic where I felt anxious for being locked at home inside, but also felt very anxious when I was out, which was really tough. And a lot of people kind of experienced those kind of feelings.
Yeah, I can kind of understand that because whenever I wear a mask that it's like light blue or white, since they look the exact same, I end up sometimes wearing it backwards, and I don't really get that. And then I feel kind of I feel like, why do I even have a low vision? It would have been way easier to see the mask. But then thinking of it, I'm pretty sure there are others that struggle with doing the same.
Absolutely.
And for me, wearing glasses, I'm sure other people with glasses experience it too. So for me, wearing glasses, I'm sure other people with glasses experience it too. But when you wear a mask, you have to wear it in such a way so that your glasses doesn't fog up, because after a while, it just gets annoying having to unfog your glasses every 1 minute or 2 minutes. So I had to develop a different way to wear a mask that covers both my nose and my mouth, but doesn't go so far as to fog up my glasses.
I agree.
How did poetry help with your disability?
Can you just repeat that one more time, please?
Like, how did poetry help you come in terms with your disability?
It wasn't just the poetry, it was the reaction and the response that the poems got, because I was sharing everything about my life, the good days, the bad days, and people were messaging me saying how much it was helping them. That really encouraged me to accept my blindness and my struggles with my low vision, and often I would read my poetry and remember that I'm setting an example, not just for the people who are in the community that are reading it, but my children as well. Because with my retinitis pigmentosa, there's a 1 in 2 chance that my son Austin and my daughter Ellie will lose their sight when they're older and be affected. So I've got to be an example to them and show them, as well as all the other people who follow me, that the vision that you lose in your eyes is no replacement for the vision in your mind, and you can still achieve incredible things. So that is the thing that inspires me, and the poetry is my outlet to do that.
Okay, and one final question.
Sure.
Are you doing anything else other than poetry? Or are you working on anything else other than poetry to help in the disability community?
Absolutely. Lots and lots of projects, lots and lots of things at the moment. And actually, I'd like to bring Barb in here, because we just launched, and in fact, Barry Asman has just joined us as well, which is great to see.
I am here, just on a plane, still taxiing, but I'm here.
Okay, so yeah, we have just launched. The reason why I'm here in Florida at the moment is we just launched a new program off the back of Austin's amazing adventures, called Austin's Amazing Ambassadors. And this is a program where people like yourselves can sign up to become ambassadors, to go into your local communities and share your own experiences of disability, low vision, blindness, different challenges, through my poetry, and use it to start the conversation. And not only are you going into your local communities to share your stories as ambassadors for us, but through doing this, you become support and peers for other people, other children who are going through the same thing, and they want to become ambassadors themselves, and it just encourages people. So that's one of many things. I also am speaking at events all over the world, talking about my story and sharing my experiences. I also write poetry for different campaigns and commercials for big companies. In the last year, I've worked with Apple, Kellogg's, with a company called Roche, lots of different big organizations that really helps to raise awareness of the disability community. And I always say to people that every day I get up and I try to reach more people and replicate the impact I've already had, but also to show people that disability isn't an excuse to do less, but it's a reason to do more.
I think Mom actually told me about the Austin's amazing ambassador. So I think I know a little bit.
So we've got Barb here with us on the phone at the moment. Barb Calhoun's here, and I'd like to bring Barb a little more about that, if you will.
Mr. Steele, you're
Barb, can
frozen.
you mute yourself?
You
Yeah,
froze.
I'm on mute, but Dave, you went in and out there for a minute. What did you say?
Okay. I said, can you talk a little bit more about the ambassador program and some of the things that we're going to be doing?
So kind of where it all started, if I could go back a little bit, was seeing that Dave had this platform where he shared about what he does through his poetry, and the way he was inspiring people worldwide was inspiring to me, and honestly to anybody who had come across his work. And so I had decided that we've got to figure out, like, at least for myself personally, I need to figure out a way within the city to raise awareness here in Charleston, West Virginia, how to share the community that there is a low vision and blind and deaf blind community. I myself have Usher syndrome type 2. So I just really wanted for them to know. And so I had reached out to the county school. They had shared with me they had a 5th grader who had low vision at a particular elementary school. So I went to that elementary school, brought the book with me, and put Dave up on Zoom. And then we also had the low vision impaired teacher. I think here they call it the teacher of the visually impaired. Okay, that's what it's called. He was there, and we basically talked to an assembly of kids about low vision and the different types of, like, we talked about Usher syndrome, we talked about RP, and then this particular girl, I believe she had, Dave, help me pronounce it. Is it Stargardt?
Stargardt's.
Yes, she had that. Gary,
are you able to mute yourself, Barry?
Yeah, he did. Okay, so anyway, so then I was, telling Dave about this, and of course Dave was like, we should encourage kids and people everywhere to do this. And so that's how we came about with Austin's Amazing Ambassadors, is to help people like you, but also adults, go into their community to raise awareness, to talk about it, to start conversations, and to use Dave's poetry to help them understand, because my own family couldn't understand what I was experiencing. So I was able to say, well, let me read you a poem and read from his books what I was experiencing. And then they were able to step into my world just for those few minutes that I read it to understand. And so that poetry gives our communities that we're going into the understanding that they need. Okay, here's what's going on. But then we're also advocates for ourselves. And like Dave said, we're helping all of you to be, to go to your peers and to people who, like, for an example, I met some people here through what I did who have RP, and I met a gal once with Usher syndrome, all because I started talking about it. And then I realized there's more than just me here living out here in the hills of West Virginia. I thought it was just me, but it's not. There's a whole group of us. So that's basically what we promote as ambassadors. Or Dave, Barry, not what we promote is just helping you guys go into your communities and and to talk about it and get people to understand. So
And also, I've been doing recently a lot of poetry workshops with children and adults, which allows them to use the power of poetry to share and talk about their own experiences. So I will go into a school or an organization and teach them my method of writing poetry. And once they're able to do that, they are able to use poetry to talk about their own things. I was at a school only last week, and we had a young boy writing a poem about his autism. We had another boy writing a poem about his grandfather who just passed away. And we can really get them to talk about things that they maybe not even felt like they had the courage to talk about, but through the poetry. And that's kind of the power of it. Now, listen, we are, time flies during Tea and Poetry. We've only got 10 minutes left. So Barry, I'm sure there's lots of people out there who would like to come on and join us. So we're going to have a kind of a free for all now. If you can promote as many people to host as possible. We're going to invite you all now to come and join us, turn your cameras on and interact with us. And if anyone has any questions for any of us, then please, now is the time to do so, because we have 10 minutes left. It's amazing how quick it goes when we're having fun. I'm seeing everyone joining on now. So I know, Barry, I know you're still there at the moment. If you're able to check the chat, Barbara, I don't know if you're able to do that.
Just a lot of people were just kind of commenting on what they were talking about, and I don't think there was any specific questions. It was just more conversations with everyone. So
okay. So if anyone is there and they would like to speak up and say hi, could you unmute yourself and say hello?
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, Doreen.
Hi, Doreen.
I'm under the dryer.
Oh,
I'm under the hair dryer.
Get some water.
Hello, everybody. Awesome
Doreen.
webinar. I've been listening.
Is there anything you'd like to say or ask?
Well, they asked what inspired you, and it was writing poetry. What inspired me was teaching yoga, being visually impaired, and I thought I could never do it, and I did. Yep.
Absolutely. That's a really good point, Doreen. And as I said, you know, it's not an excuse to put things off. You know, you should chase your dreams and do, if you got something you want to do, you should do it now. Do it today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Doreen.
Hi, Barry.
I have a question for you, Dave.
Who's that?
It's Pam from West Midlands, UK.
How are you doing? You okay?
I'm all right, thank you. I've been following you quite religiously. One quick question for you, and for maybe for Krish and Aryan. What are Krish and Aryan's aspirations as they're getting older? And for yourself, a challenge for you actually. I'd like you to actually write a poem about me and Ethel, my cane, which is a pink cane.
Well, listen, before we answer that question, I want to read you something, if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
So I've been here speaking at a number of events, and I don't know if you've seen this poem. So I often write about mobility canes, and I will take that challenge up about writing about you. And it is Ethel.
Ethel, she's and it's an incident we had when I was actually having my Rovi lesson, mobility lesson with my advisor, and two kittens popped up and they were playing with Ethel. She was traumatized. So.
Oh my God, that's so funny. So I want to share with you this poem. So I wrote a poem a couple of months ago now, and I don't know if you've seen it, about a mobility cane. And I woke up one morning and I had this idea to write a poem from the perspective of a mobility cane. So in the poem, it's the cane that's talking.
Okay.
And it really talks about how everyone goes through this process of learning to understand that a cane is a sign of strength and not weakness. And that we all go through this process of sometimes feeling self-conscious about using our cane in public. So I'll read it for you now.
Thank you.
It goes like this. You're not the only one who's felt embarrassed to be seen. Outside walking with me, this for many's always been. A part of the whole process as together we will train. but in time you will realize you'll soon be proud again. I'm made to give you back the things that you may feel you've lost, like pride and independence, all the things that blindness cost. I'm not a sign of weakness. I'm a reason to be proud. Alleviate anxiety when you are in a crowd. Sometimes I'm left behind or folded up inside your hand, but I'll be ready for you. I won't judge. I understand. I know these things are natural. It's the way that people stare when you can still see some things, but for blindness, you prepare. You don't need to see nothing to be able to use me. That's not the way that blindness works. It fades so differently. I'm here to be a symbol and a signal that you're strong, a reason not to isolate, a reason to belong. So when you're feeling ready, I'll be with you day or night. Unfold me, hold me confident, and swipe me left to right. Eventually, you'll come to terms, our partnership remain. It's me and you forever. I am your mobility cane.
Oh, no!
Yay! Yay.
And that piece of poetry can be used by O&M instructors, mobility instructors to really show people right from the beginning of the process that, you know, these things that we experience are perfectly normal and it's okay.
So Dave, there was one question. So when you're ready, let me know.
Well, we had a question for my wonderful two hosts this evening, which was, what do you aspire to be when you're older?
Yeah. Apart from amazing ambassadors. So.
Yeah. Can you answer that for us? Can you hear me?
Krish?
I like goldfish. I want cracker. Goldfish. Cracker.
Sorry,
Krish and Aaron, can you hear me?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the question was, so going Bob.
No, you go ahead. I was stopping myself.
The question was, what do you two inspire to be when you're older? What would you like to be when you're an adult?
I want to be a lawyer when I grow up.
I want to be 100 things, but one thing I definitely want to do right now when I grow up, and I'm already doing it, is be an advocate and an activist for people with disabilities.
That's fantastic.
It is.
I also want to be a teacher and an astronaut and president.
Fantastic. I've got Phil Collins and birds going off in the background here.
Aww.
It's crazy.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those great questions. Bob, did you say you had a question there?
Somebody had asked what books about audio, if your books are available on audio.
So Austin's Amazing Adventures is available on audio. We're going to have it's a free audio book with every purchase of the book, and that gets sent through as a file. With Stand By Me RP Volume 1, 2, and 3, we really struggled for such a long time to get them on audio because people would consume these books almost like a music album, listening to individual tracks. So there was a few kind of hoops we've had to jump through to get that, but I can tell you that actually these books are going to be available on audio via a podcast, which we're going to be creating soon. So I'm going to be, when I get back in the UK next week, I'm going to be reading all the poems and uploading them onto a podcast, which means you'll be able to listen to them via iTunes and things like that. So we're working on that at the moment.
Okay.
And I also just want to say that if you've already purchased Austin's Amazing Adventures and you have not received the audio files, we're going to be sending everyone a link so you can download them and listen to them. So just wanted to point that out.
Okay, I think we've got time for a couple more questions. So if anyone else would like to ask a question, please feel free to do it right now. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Jennifer, do you want to ask your question? I saw that you had commented. She's working on that.
Hello?
There you go.
Hi, Jennifer. We can hear you.
Sorry, I have a plane going overhead. I just wanted to ask Aryan and Chris, like, what do they do when they're stressed out to relax? Like, what is a relaxation tool or activity that they really like to do to kind of break away from stress or anxieties?
Great question.
I just take a hot shower.
I have no, I have no clue what I do. It depends really on how stressed I am or how sad I am. Usually, I just cry it out or just do something that calms me down, like go on my iPad or listen to music.
I'd like to add to that question, actually. So when I'm having a bad day, as I still do, but now we got a motorbike. when I'm having a bad day, as I still do, you know, because I'm human and we all have bad days. I'm in the situation now where I can, when I'm struggling, I think about how I can use my experiences and the feeling and what I'm feeling and put it into a piece of poetry that is gonna help somebody else. There's great strength in being able to share and talk about our weaknesses. And I think, you know, to be able to tell someone that you struggle just like them at times is a really powerful thing.
Yes, yes, it is. And one more thing I wanted to say, I don't know which one of you mentioned about the lack of education for disabled folks. And I work in a mental health facility where I've had many disabled folks come through, and they don't offer services to them. They kind of just make do, and they don't offer or bring in the services that are needed, like a translator or, you know, devices or what you need. So I think the educational forum would need to bring in more devices, more training, have more professionals that could assist them so that there's more availability for them to get education.
100%. We've got a lot of work to do. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it has come to that time, unfortunately. The hour has absolutely flown by, but do not despair. I know we've run out of time this hour, but please, I know we've had a lot of people here that have joined us for the first time. We are going to continue this on. I would love to invite you all to come back next Wednesday. I am going to be at home in the UK, and I would love to continue this conversation, ask more questions, and really pick up from where we left
Oh
off.
dear.
So tea and poetry, we all know about a tribe. Please, can you hear it? Can you hear me now?
We hear you now.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay, great. I was just saying, that's okay. I was just saying next week I'm going to be home. I won't have birds in the room or motorbikes or I don't know who that is singing now. Yeah, please come and join us next week. And I would love you to Christian and Aaron to come back and really to carry on this conversation if you would be interested in doing so. Would that be okay? I'll take that as a yes. Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes. So please, I hope you will all join us next week for Tea and Poetry. But before you do that, I would like to finish with a piece of poetry, if that's okay. So I hope you can all hear me clearly. Is that okay, Barb? You can hear me?
We hear you. We hear you
Okay,
just fine.
fantastic. So this piece of poetry I'm going to finish with is my advice to all those questions that I just got asked, that were brilliant. Is my advice to anyone at the beginning of their journey, anyone that's maybe struggling or had a bad day, and this is called Blind Perceptions, and it goes like this. I know there's strength inside of you, though all you feel is numb. Don't be afraid as eyesight fades for what is still to come. You will adjust. In these words, trust. We share these tunneled eyes. A mix of strength and anxiousness, the same in me applies. My shins are full of bruises and my confidence misplaced. At times self-isolated, felt the world too much to face. So I'm here to remind you, all the times we fail don't matter. There's lots of misconceptions still. Let's remind them of the latter. It's not that complicated to change how blindness is defined. Let's educate, articulate the many ways we're blind. It's never all or nothing, many shades and different views. Yet there's this stereotype they keep on printing in the news. No wonder some of us have fears when out in crowded place. They see the cane but can't explain why we look them in the face. There's some of us who stay at home, convinced of the excuse that because we don't look blind enough, there's a need to be recluse. Don't waste your life on people whose opinions are way off. Just swipe your cane with courage. Hold your head with pride aloft. So never doubt what we're about, despite what some believe. Come join me on my mission and change the way we are perceived. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us this week on Tea and Poetry. We hope you will come back next week and let's continue this conversation. This is just part one of this interview and part one of this experience. We've got lots more to come. Next Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. UK time. I can't remember what time it is Central. You have to apologize. Or Mountain Time.
3, 4, and
It's 3 o'clock Central.
3, 2, and 1.
All of that. So have a wonderful day. I'm off to a retirement party now here in wherever I am, Leesburg.
Claremont. Leesburg.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm in Leesburg. Yeah. So a wonderful retirement party, and I will see you all next week for another episode of Tea and Poetry. Thanks, guys.
I'm sure I take so long, but if we didn't get it, check out theblindpoet.net and please sign up and become an ambassador. Austin's Amazing Ambassadors.
Yes. Thank you, Barry, for that reminder.
Thank you. So long. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Tea and Poetry, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Join us live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. UK. A big thank you to our sponsors, the Lanny D. Chesapeake Lighthouse and the Low Vision Shop. If you enjoyed Tea and Poetry, please invite a friend, like, share, and subscribe.